I woke up to the sound of heavy breathing, and it wasn't mine. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The room was still, heavy with the kind of silence that only exists at 3 in the morning. My sheets were tangled around my legs, my body warm from sleep. But the sound kept tugging at me, pulling me into awareness. I blinked, squinting into the dark. The faint glow of the streetlight spilled through the blinds, just enough to outline the shape of the bed across from mine. That's when I saw him. Jack, my roommate. His chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. One arm was stretched above his head, the other moving. Slowly at first, then with a rhythm that made my throat dry. His blanket shifted with every motion, and I didn't need perfect lighting to understand what he was doing. But that wasn't what froze me. It was his eyes, wide open, focused, not glazed over, not distant. He wasn't lost in some fantasy. He wasn't watching his phone. He was staring at me. Every nerve in my body went hot and cold at once. My mind screamed, no, this isn't happening. But my body refused to move. Jack, my straight roommate. The guy who joked about girls, who showed me his Tinder matches, who kissed random girls at parties like it meant nothing. He wasn't touching himself for them. He was doing it while looking at me. The realization hit like fire in my chest. I should have turned away. I should have said something. But instead, I just lay there, heart pounding so loud I swore he could hear it. My skin burned under his gaze, every inch of me suddenly aware, exposed, like he was already touching me without ever crossing the space between us. And the worst, or maybe the most dangerous part, I didn't want to look away. Flashback. About a year ago, I guess. To really understand why I couldn't look away that night, you'd have to know how it started. Jack wasn't just my roommate. He was Jack. The first time I met him was move-in day, freshman year. He was already there when I walked into our dorm, sitting cross-legged on the bare mattress, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. Tall, lean, dark hair that always looked like he just rolled out of bed, but somehow made it work. When he glanced up, those green eyes landed on me, sharp and amused. Adam, right? Guess we're stuck together, he'd said, grinning like it was a joke. And just like that, he became the center of the room. Jack wasn't the loudest guy on campus, but he didn't need to be. He had this ease about him, like he knew exactly who he was and didn't care what anyone thought. Girls noticed. Guys noticed. Hell, I noticed. Too much. I told myself it was just admiration. That he was the kind of guy I wished I could be. Confident, magnetic, effortlessly cool. But sometimes when he'd walk around shirtless after a shower, towel slung low on his hips, or when he'd sprawl across his bed laughing at something stupid on his phone, I'd feel that tight pull in my chest and have to force myself to look away. Because Jack was straight. Or at least, that's what he wanted everyone to think. He went on dates with girls, hooked up at parties, came back smelling like perfume more than once, smirking like it was no big deal. And me? I kept my distance, kept it safe. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who wanted something he could never have. So I learned to tuck it down, to laugh when he teased me, to act normal when our shoulders brushed while gaming, to ignore the way my stomach flipped whenever he called me man in that lazy, casual tone. And maybe I almost believed it myself, that I didn't want him, that whatever I felt was just a stupid crush that would fade. What I didn't know then was that Jack's feelings weren't simple either. He always thought he was straight. He joked, flirted with girls, acted like it was all easy. But after we started living together, the lines started to blur for him. At first, whenever he noticed anything about me, how I smiled at some stupid meme, or how our hands would brush when we reached for the same game controller, He told himself he was just being friendly. But as the weeks went by, he couldn't ignore how his chest tightened around me. Still, he brushed it off, shoved those feelings down hard. He couldn't be into a guy, right? That just wasn't him, or so he kept telling himself. But then came nights like this one. Nights where his eyes gave him away. Where the line I thought was so solid between us suddenly blurred into nothing. And I realized, maybe it was never just me. Back to present, a few minutes later. My breath caught in my throat. Jack's eyes weren't glazed over with shame. He wasn't scrambling to pull the blanket higher to pretend I hadn't just caught him. Number. He kept staring. Like he wanted me to know. Like he wanted me to. See? I shifted, the mattress creaking softly beneath me. And that was enough. His hand stilled under the sheets. For a moment, we just froze. Me half sitting up, him lying there, chest rising and falling like he'd run a mile. "You're awake," he whispered, voice rough, low, almost hungry. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My heart was pounding in my ears, my body burning hot. And all I could manage was a strangled, "Jack, what the hell are you doing?" For a second, panic surged, and I blurted the first thing that came to mind. "Are you high or drunk or something?" I tried to laugh it off, tried to drag the moment back into some kind of normal, but my voice cracked halfway through. Jack didn't even smile. His jaw tightened, his chest heaving as he shook his head. "No, I'm not drunk, I'm not high, I'm just done lying." His voice dropped lower, shaking but intense. "I can't stop, Adam. I've been wanting you for months. You don't get it. I can't look at you every night and not want." My stomach flipped, heat rushing to my face. My brain screamed, "This is insane." But my body betrayed me. My skin tingled everywhere his eyes touched, and that low, desperate rasp in his voice dug under my ribs, right where I'd been trying to bury this feeling for a year. "You're not straight," I muttered, though it came out more like a question than an accusation. Jack gave this humorless laugh, almost bitter. "Yeah, I know what I said. What I pretended. But look at me, Adam. You think this is for anyone else?" His hand twitched under the sheets. His jaw clenched. "It's only ever been you." My mouth went dry. I should have been angry. I should have pushed him away, demanded an explanation, anything. Instead, I was frozen, my pulse pounding, every inch of me aware of just how close he was. Then Jack moved. 1 second he was on his bed. The next he was leaning across the space between us, catching my jaw in his hand. His lips crushed against mine, hot and rough and desperate, like he'd been starving and I was the first taste of air. I should have shoved him off. But the second his mouth touched mine, all those months of restraint snapped like a rubber band. I kissed him back. Messy. Hard. A collision more than a kiss, teeth clashing, breath ragged. His fingers dug into my hair, pulling me closer, and I grabbed fistfuls of his t-shirt like if I let go, he'd vanish. It was chaos. It was wrong. It was everything I'd been pretending I didn't want, burning into me with every second his mouth stayed on mine. And God help me, I didn't stop. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight slanting across the room, too bright, too sharp for how wrecked I felt inside. My lips were sore, my throat dry, my body heavy like I hadn't actually slept at all. For a second, I thought maybe it hadn't happened, that I'd dreamed the whole thing. Then I shifted, and the faint taste of him was still on my tongue. Jack's bed was empty. His sheets were a mess, but he wasn't there. My chest squeezed, panic flaring until I heard the faint clink of a spoon against a bowl in the tiny kitchenette. I dragged myself up, hair sticking up in every direction, stomach twisting with 100 versions of what I should say. "We need to talk." What the hell was that? Do you regret it? Do I? But when I stepped out, Jack was leaning against the counter, shirtless, eating cereal like it was just another morning. "Morning, man," he said around a mouthful, green eyes flicking up at me with that same lazy grin he always had. Like nothing had happened. Like my entire world hadn't tilted sideways just hours ago. I froze, searching his face for any crack, any sign that he was shaken too. Nothing. He poured more milk into the bowl and nodded toward the cereal box. "You want some before class?" Relief and frustration crashed together inside me. He was giving me an out, pretending last night didn't happen. Part of me wanted to grab onto it, bury the memory deep. But another part, the bigger part, was screaming. Because I remembered his mouth on mine, the way he whispered my name like it was a confession, like it was something forbidden he couldn't hold back anymore. And now he was just chewing cereal. I mumbled something like, "Yeah, sure," and reached for a bowl, hands trembling. We didn't talk about it. Not a word. But when our eyes met across the table, I felt it. Like static in the air, sharp and alive. It was there, between us. No matter how much he pretended, it didn't stop there. At night, it always came back. The first time, I thought maybe it was a mistake. That maybe the kiss had been some weird, desperate slip and we'd never touch again. But the next night, when I turned off the lamp and lay in the dark, Jack's voice slipped through the quiet. "Still awake?" My heart hammered. "Yeah?" There was a pause, then the soft creak of his mattress. And before I could breathe, his weight was pressing down beside me, his hand sliding into my hair, his lips crashing into mine again. It was the same every time. Rough, desperate, like he was holding himself back all day just to let it explode at night. His fingers would dig into my shirt, tug me closer, his breath hot in my ear as he whispered things he'd never dare say in daylight. "Do you know how long I've wanted this? You drive me freaking insane. I can't stop thinking about you." And me? I didn't stop him. I couldn't. I wanted it just as badly, maybe worse. I'd kiss him until I was breathless, clutching him like he was the only real thing in the world. But when morning came, the switch flipped. Back to jokes, to casual smiles, to, "Man, you want to grab lunch?" Like the night before hadn't happened. By day, he was Jack, the straight roommate, the easygoing guy everyone wanted to hang out with. By night, he was something else. Mine. The whiplash left me dizzy. Some nights I lay awake after he'd slipped back into his own bed, wondering if this was just lust for him, a secret indulgence he could hide in the dark. For me, it was more. I couldn't deny it anymore. But for Jack, I didn't know. Over a week later. It started small. Jack flirting with girls the way he always did. An arm slung around some girl at a party. A wink, a laugh, a casual "text me later." I told myself it was just an act. A cover. But every time I saw it, jealousy burned hot in my chest, twisting tighter than I wanted to admit. And then, people started noticing. One afternoon, I walked into the common lounge and caught the tail end of a conversation. Two guys from down the hall were snickering, one of them nudging the other. "They're always together," one whispered, smirking. "You think they're—" "Nah," the other cut in. "Jack? No way, he's always with girls. Adam's the, His voice dropped, but I caught the word anyway. Gay. Looking back, I guess we weren't as careful as we thought. People talk. Maybe someone saw Jack being too close to me in front of everyone, or picked up on the way we avoided each other's eyes after a long night. There were those moments, ones that stretched a second too long when we looked at each other, or the time our hands brushed, and we both yanked away, red-faced. It didn't take much for people to connect dots, especially in a dorm where walls feel paper thin. Heat crawled up my neck, and I ducked out before they saw me, my chest tight. But it wasn't just them. The girl Jack had been casually seeing for a few weeks, Melissa, I think her name was, cornered me outside class one day. Pretty, sharp-eyed, too smart not to notice things. "So, you and Jack," she said casually, like she was asking about the weather. I blinked. "What about us?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You spend a lot of nights in, don't you?" My mouth went dry. She studied me for a second longer, then smirked, almost like she'd confirmed something. Not long after, I heard through the grapevine that Melissa was done with Jack. No big fight, no drama. Things just fizzled. Maybe she figured it out, or maybe Jack finally realized he couldn't pretend anymore. Either way, after that, it was just the two of us again. The rumors grew after that. Whispers in the hallway. Lingering stares when we walked into the cafeteria together. And through Victor, Jack kept up the act. Laughing with girls, joking with the guys, pretending like he hadn't been in my bed every night. But when the door closed, his hands would be on me like he couldn't get close enough. His voice would rasp against my skin. "Only you, Adam. Only you." And that was the problem. Because if that was true, if I really was the only one, then why was he still pretending in daylight? 2 weeks later. It happened by accident. I wasn't supposed to hear him. I'd come back from class early, headphones in, moving quietly as I pushed open the dorm door. Jack's voice stopped me cold. He was on the phone pacing, his words low but sharp, heavy. "No, man. It's not like that. He's just my roommate. Nothing's going on." My chest tightened, breath caught. He paused, listening, then sighed. "You're imagining things, okay? I'm straight. You know that." My hands went numb around the strap of my backpack. The world tilted under me. Straight. Just his roommate. Nothing's going on. I backed into the hallway before he saw me, heart hammering. The words cut deep, deeper than I'd let myself expect. All those nights, his hands on me, his voice whispering, "Only you." Was it just lies? Was I just an outlet? A secret experiment he'd bury when the lights came back on? By the time he found me that night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Adam," he started, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I snapped. My throat burned, my chest aching. "I heard you." He froze. "What?" "This afternoon. On the phone. Just your roommate. Nothing's going on." My voice cracked, but I pushed through it. "So, which is it, Jack? Am I just something you play with in the dark, or—" I choked on the words, shaking my head. "You know what? If you're ashamed of me, then don't touch me again." Silence crashed between us, heavy and raw. Jack's mouth opened, closed, but no words came out. And for the first time in months, I turned my back on him. The days after were hell. I stopped meeting his eyes, slept with my back turned to him. He tried. God, he tried. Half-formed apologies. Touches. I shrugged off, desperate whispers when he thought I was asleep. But I couldn't do it anymore. Not when every word he'd said on that phone call kept replaying in my head. Straight, roommate. Nothing's going on. If I was nothing, then I couldn't keep giving him everything. But the thing about secrets is, they never stay buried. Whispers had spread wider now. People looked at us different when we walked into a room. Smirks, nudges. That knowing look like they were all in on a joke I hadn't heard the punchline to yet. And the worst part? Jack still laughed along. Still flirted with girls. Still put on the mask. Every fake smile was a knife twisting deeper. I didn't know how much longer I could take it. The breaking point came at a party. The room was hot, crowded, pulsing with music and sweat. Jack was leaning against the kitchen counter, a beer in hand, surrounded by friends. I kept my distance, pretending not to watch him, even as my chest ached with every laugh that wasn't mine. A little later, one of Jack's classmates, Connor, started talking to me by the makeshift bar. Connor leaned in close, voice dropping as he smiled the way guys do when they're flirting. For just a second, I let myself laugh, trying to feel normal, even though all I could think about was Jack on the other side of the room. When I glanced up, I caught Jack watching us. His jaw was tight, his eyes dark, gripping his beer so hard his knuckles showed white. Then Victor nudged Jack with a smirk. "You've been acting different lately, man." Spending too much time with your roommate. Jack's gaze flicked between Connor and me. He turned to Victor, gave a sharp laugh that wasn't really a laugh, then suddenly shoved his beer onto the counter and crossed the room in 3 strides. My breath caught. "Jack, what are you—" He didn't let me finish. His hand grabbed mine, firm, pulling me forward. His other hand slid behind my neck, and then his mouth was on mine. Hard, hungry, reckless. The room gasped, voices rising in shock, chaos spinning around us. Someone swore, someone else shouted, but I barely heard it. All I felt was him, his lips, his heat, his choice. Because this wasn't in the dark. This wasn't whispered, hidden, denied. This was daylight, public, everyone watching, and he didn't care. When he finally pulled back, his chest heaving, his green eyes locked on mine with a fire I'd never seen before. "I don't care what they think," he said, voice rough but steady. "I'm done hiding. I only want you." The room was still buzzing, stares burning into us. But in that moment, all I saw was him. And for the first time, I believed him. A few minutes later, the noise of the party still clung to me. The shock, the whispers, the stares that followed us as we slipped out the back door. My pulse hadn't calmed, my lips still tingled from the kiss he'd given me in front of everyone. But out here, in the quiet night air, it was just us. Jack leaned against the brick wall, running a hand through his dark hair, chest heaving like he'd just run miles. For once, he didn't look untouchable. He looked raw, wrecked, like he'd ripped himself open and didn't know what would come out. I stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around myself, trying to breathe. My head spun. I couldn't tell if I wanted to scream at him or kiss him again until the world fell away. "Adam." His voice cracked a little on my name. He pushed off the wall, stepping closer. "I'm sorry. For everything. For making you think you weren't enough. For pretending I didn't want you when all I did was want you." His jaw clenched, eyes burning into mine. "I don't want girls. I don't want anyone else. Just you. Only you." The words hit me like a punch. For months I'd wanted to believe it, but part of me always feared I was just a secret, something temporary. Hearing him say it now, out loud, no mask, no denial, broke something open inside me. "Do you mean that?" My voice was barely a whisper. He nodded, stepping so close I could feel the heat of him. "I've never meant anything more in my life." His hand brushed against mine, hesitant, like he was waiting for permission. I was scared. I thought if people knew, I'd lose everything. But tonight, he exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I realized the only thing I can't lose is you. My throat tightened, my chest aching with everything I'd bottled up for so long. And then I was moving, closing the last inch between us, grabbing his shirt and pulling him down into a kiss. This one wasn't messy or desperate. It was slow, deliberate, a promise wrapped in heat. His hands cupped my face, steady and sure, like he finally knew exactly where he belonged. When we broke apart, I rested my forehead against his, both of us smiling breathlessly. For months, what we had lived only in the dark, in stolen moments, in shadows. But now it was real, claimed, I glanced at him, the boy who had been my secret, my torment, my obsession, and now, finally mine. And as he laced his fingers through mine, holding on like he'd never let go, I knew this wasn't forbidden anymore. It was ours. 3 years later. 3 years. That's how long it had been since that night outside the party when Jack kissed me in front of everyone and everything changed. Now, on a lazy Sunday morning, I woke to sunlight spilling through the blinds of our apartment, warming the sheets tangled around us. Jack was sprawled beside me, his hair a mess, mouth parted in sleep. He looked different from the boy I met at 18, older, sharper, tattoos along his arm now. But he still had that same infuriating mix of softness and fire. I brushed my fingers over his chest, tracing the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. That sound had become my anchor. He stirred, blinking awake, then gave me a slow, sleepy grin. "You staring again?" "Always," I teased, but my throat tightened with something deeper. Because it hadn't always been this easy. His family had hated me at first. Hated us. They said he was confused, that I was leading him astray, that he'd ruin his future if he chose me. And for a while, it almost broke us. He pulled away, scared, and I let him, terrified I was just a phase. There were weeks we barely spoke, both of us miserable, pretending to move on, but never really letting go. But then, he came back. I'll never forget the night he showed up at my door, soaked from the rain, eyes blazing as he said, "I can't do it. I can't live without you." That was the moment I knew. We weren't just lust, or rebellion, or some messy college fling. We were it. Now here we were, still together, stronger. Jack rolled onto his side, pulling me into his arms, pressing his nose against my hair. "You know," he murmured, "if 18-year-old me could see this, he'd lose his damn mind." I laughed into his chest. 18-year-old you was an idiot. True. He kissed the top of my head. But he was smart enough to want you. For a moment, we just lay there, wrapped up in each other, sunlight painting us gold. Outside, the world would keep spinning. Friends, work, bills, all the noise of life. But inside this room, it was just us. And we were happy. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. I tilted my head back, meeting his green eyes, and whispered the truth I'd carried for years. "You're my forever." His smile was soft, almost shy, but his grip on me tightened like a vow. "Always, Adam, always." And just like that, I knew we'd keep finding our way back to each other. Every time. The end. Do you believe some people are meant to find their way back to each other, no matter how many times life tries to pull them apart? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.